Welcome back to another episode of SmoothBrainEDH, where we make the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. We're back with some more casual gameplay featuring some newer and some older commanders. So let's hop right into it and see who's playing what. And first up we have Seth on Zur the Enchanter. Now I'm very sure you all know what this deck does, but it is just Esper enchantments, usually around CMC 3 or less, and it uses its commander to tutor them to the battlefield. Seth keeps an opening hand of an Island, Tundra, Wasteland, Mystic Remora, Daybreak Coronet, Supreme Verdict, and Jace the Mind Sculptor. Up next, we have a new member, Alex, on Mishra, Imminent One. This here is Grixis Artifact Combos, and Alex plans on using Mishra to either win with combos or pivot into a pretty powerful stacks engine. And he keeps an opening hand with an Island, a Swamp, Temple of Deceit, Arcane Signet, Thran Dynamo, Fabricate, and Blasphemous Act. After Alex comes Sam on Ghired, Conclave Exile. This is a deck we've seen before, and it's a Naya tokens deck that focuses on the Myriad ability. Sam will keep an opening hand of Arid Mesa, Cabaretti Courtyard, Beseiju Who Endures, Hall of Heliod's Generosity, Colossal Majesty, Stoneforge Mystic, and Mondrak, Glory Dominus. And last but not least, we have Chandler on Ghalta and Mavren. This deck is all about token generation and big creatures, and Ghalta and Mavren will enable this deck even further. Chandler keeps an opening hand of a Forest, Plains, Yavimaya Cradle of Growth, Command Tower, Sylvan Library, Beast Within, and Elder Gargaroth. We're about to hop right into the gameplay, but before that, go ahead and give us a like, subscribe, and ring the bell notification so you don't miss any of our new content. We post new gameplay videos every week, so you won't want to miss it. Big shout out to our patrons, we really appreciate the support. There are links to our Patreon down in the description below, as well as links to the deck list, our social media, our podcast channel, and our public Discord. Our channel is also partnered with Dragon Shield, so if you're looking to pick up any new sleeves or magic related products, check out our affiliate link in the description. We're also partnered with Inked Gaming, so if you're looking to make any custom playmats, use that affiliate link as well. Now, let's hop right into the gameplay. Sam wins the die roll, and he'll start off with Arid Mesa, and he'll immediately fetch with it for Jitmere Garden, and then pass to Chandler. Chandler plays a Command Tower and passes to Seth. Seth will play an Island into Mystic Remora, and he'll pass to Alex, who will play Temple of Deceit, and he scries one to the bottom, and then passes. Sam starts his turn off with his Hall of Heliod, and then he'll tap for 2 and cast Stoneforge Mystic. It'll resolve, and upon ETB, he'll search his library for Blade of Selves and put it to his hand. The turn is then passed to Chandler, who will play a basic Plains as land for turn, and then he'll tap for 2 and cast Sylvan Library, Fish Trigger. He'll then pass, and then on Seth's turn, he'll just pay for Fish, play a Tundra, and then he'll pass to Alex, who starts off with a basic Mountain, and then he'll tap for 2 and cast Arcane Signet, Fish Trigger, and then he'll pass to Sam. Sam starts off by moving to combat and hitting Seth for 1. He'll then play his Cabaretti Courtyard on second main, which will sacrifice itself, and he'll find a forest to the battlefield tapped and gain a life. The turn is then passed to Chandler, and he has a Sylvan Library trigger when he draws his first card, and he decides to pay 4 life to keep an extra card. He'll then play Yavimaya as land for turn, and then he'll tap for 3 and cast Tribute to the World Tree, triggering Fish, and then he'll pass the turn to Seth. Seth starts off by paying for his cumulative upkeep, then he'll play Watery Grave tapped and pass the turn to Alex, and he discards 2 lands on cleanup. Now on Alex's turn, he'll play an Island, and then tap for 3 and cast Rhystic Study, Fish Trigger, and honestly, since there's so many triggered taxes now, I'm just going to tell you guys when they are paid. The turn is then passed to Sam, and he'll start off by shocking in a Temple Garden. Then he'll tap for 4 and cast Mondrak. It resolves, then he'll move to combat and swing for 1 at Seth, and then pass the turn to Chandler. Sylvan Library trigger on draw, and he decides to not pay any life. Moving to first main, he'll play a basic Forest, and then he'll tap for 4 to cast Toski, Bearer of Secrets, and thanks to Tribute of the World Tree, he gets an additional 2+1/+1 counters. The turn is then passed to Seth, and he lets the Mystic Remora die. He'll then play a basic Plains as land for turn, and then he casts Oromancer, returning the Mystic Remora to hand, and then he'll cast the Mystic Remora again. The turn is then passed to Alex, and he'll start off with a basic Swamp, then he'll tap for 2 and cast Enthusiastic Mechanaut. Then, for only 3 mana, he'll cast his Thran Dynamo, and then the turn is passed to Sam. And Sam will start off by casting Sol Ring. And then after the goblins get their draws, Sam will tap for 5 and cast Ghired. And thanks to Mondrak, when he ETBs, he gets 2 4/4 rhinos. After this, he'll move to combat and swing for 4 with Mondrak at Seth, who will just take it. The turn is then passed to Chandler, and there's a Sylvan Library trigger. He decides to pay 4 life to keep an extra card. After this, he'll play and fetch with a Fabled Passage for his Snow Plains, and then he'll tap for 5 mana and cast Elder Gargaroth. Upon ETB, he draws a card off of Tribute to the World Tree. He'll then move to combat, and since he has to swing with Toski, he sends it at Alex, who won't block, so Chandler gets an extra card. And then he passes the turn to Seth, who pays for his fish, again, and then he'll play Sea of Clouds' land for turn. After this, he'll cast Exchange of Words, and he'll swap the text boxes of Ghired and the Mechanaut. So then after this, Seth will discard an island on his cleanup, and then he'll pass to Alex, who will start off by shocking in a Watery Grave. Then he'll tap for 3 and cast Cursed Mirror. He wants to keep his cost reduction, and according to a judge forum, if he copies Mechanaut, it'll keep its original text box. So that's what he does. After this, he'll tap for 5 mana and cast Knight Paladin, and when it enters the battlefield, it'll deal 4 damage to each opponent. He'll then cast a Thoughtcast, and then Ethereum Sculptor. And then after this, he'll pass the turn to Sam. But before that, he has to discard a card, and it's Reaver Titan. Now on Sam's turn, he'll start off by casting Blade of Selves, and then he'll pay 1 green to channel Boseiju, blowing up Exchange of Words, and Seth gets to search for a land. And since he gets to search for a land with a basic land type, he finds Rafine's Tower to the battlefield tapped. Continuing on, Sam will then equip Blade of Selves to Ghired, then move to combat, and he'll swing Ghired at Seth, and there's a Populate trigger and a Myriad trigger. He'll resolve the Myriad trigger first, which makes 2 extra Gyrids. They die immediately to Legend Roll, but their ETB abilities do still trigger, so he gets to make 2 more Rhinos. Oh wait, no, that's 4 more Rhinos. And then off the Populate trigger, he'll copy one of the Rhinos, and he'll have 2 enter, and they'll be tapped and attacking, 1 at Chandler and 1 at Alex. Before blocks, Alex will crew his Knight Paladin with his Ethereum Sculptor, and then moving to blocks, he blocks with his Knight, and Chandler will block with his Elder Gargaroth, which has a block trigger, and he'll make a 3/3 Beast. And Seth will just chump with his 2/2. And then when Chandler gets his 3/3 Beast, he draws a card off Tribute to the World Tree. The turn is then passed to Chandler, and he has a Sylvan Library trigger. He doesn't pay any life to keep any extra cards, and then moving to his first main phase, he'll tap for 3 and cast Scoot Swarm. He does pay the 1 to Alex, which is the first 1 paid to Rhystic Study, and then he'll play a basic Plains as land for turn, and since this is his 6th land, he gets a copy of Scoot Swarm. He'll then tap for 1 and cast Skull Clamp, and no taxes are paid. After this, he'll move to combat, and he'll swing for 9 at Seth, and upon attacking, Elder Gargaroth will make another 3/3, and when it ETBs, he'll draw another card. Then, after Seth takes the 9 damage, Chandler draws an additional 2 cards off Toski. The turn is then passed to Seth, and he will let Mystic Remora die. Then he'll play an Underground Sea as land for turn. Seth's not a really big fan of the current board state, so he decides to tap for 4 and drop Supreme Verdict. After the board is wiped and Toski sticks around, Seth will cast Ghostly Prison, and then he'll pass the turn to Alex. Alex will cast Reality Chip, and then he plays an island as land for turn. After this, he'll cast Emery, Lurker of the Loch, and he has to mill 4 upon ETB. Only notable card milled is Gaunty's Aether Heart. Emery will then be equipped with Reality Chip, and then he'll immediately cast a Soul Ring off the top of his library. After this, he'll tap for 3 to cast Foundry Inspector, and then the turn is passed to Sam. Sam starts off with Colossal Majesty, and then he'll tap for 2 to cast Nature's Lore, and he does pay the 1 this time. He'll find a Taiga to the battlefield, and then he'll pass the turn to Chandler. Chandler doesn't pay any life to Sylvan Library, and then he'll play a basic forest as land for turn. He'll then cast Arasta of the Endless Web, which triggers Tribute, and then he'll cast Swiftfoot Boots, and he'll equip them to Arasta. He'll then move to combat and hit Sam for 3 to get the card draw, and then the turn is passed to Seth, who will start off by casting Zur the Enchanter. He'll then enchant him with Kaya's Ghost Form, and then Ethereal Armor. Then the turn is passed to Alex, and Alex will start off by playing Seed of the Synod off the top of his library. He'll then cast a Fabricate, which finds him Panharmonicon to his hand, and Arasta also will trigger. And Arasta's 1/2s will actually be 3/4s thanks to Tribute to the World Tree. Alex will then cast his Panharmonicon, and it will resolve. After this, he'll activate Emery, targeting Enthusiastic Mechanaut, which he will then immediately cast from Graveyard. He'll then cast Machine God's Effigy, having it come in as a copy of Foundry Inspector, and then for only 1 mana, he'll cast Krark Clan Ironworks. This is officially where Seth decides to step in, and he will mana drain it. This stops Alex, for now, so he'll pass the turn to Sam, who starts off with a basic Plains. And then he'll just tap for 1 red to cast Blasphemous Act. So the board will be wiped, but this time, instead of just Toski being left around, Zur will come back from the dead thanks to Kaya's Ghost Form. Then Sam will cast Ghired again, getting him another 4/4, and he draws a card off Colossal Majesty. And then the turn is passed to Chandler. There's a Sylvan Library trigger, and he'll pay 4 life to keep a second card. Then he'll tap for 1 to cast Soul Warden. and she gets to enter with 2+1/+1 counters. Chandler will then play and fetch with a Prismatic Vista for a snow-covered forest, and then he'll tap for 7 mana to cast our favorite token generator, Avenger of Zendikar. Upon ETB, Chandler will gain a life and then create 8 0/1 plants, but thanks to Tribute to the World Tree, they'll actually be 2/3s. And then after they enter, Chandler will gain another 8. And then since Toski has to attack, Chandler will point it at Alex, who takes the 3, and Chandler draws a card. The turn is then passed to Seth, who will get 4 colorless mana on his first main phase. He'll use 2 of it to cast Talisman of Progress, and then he'll tap for an additional 2 to cast Jace the Mind Sculptor, and he will immediately 0 Jace to Brainstorm. Oh yeah, and he does pay the 1 Touristic Study. He'll then play a Scrub land as land for turn, and then he'll cast Copy Enchantment to copy Ghostly Prison. And then he'll do it again, but this time with Mirror Maid. After this, he moves to combat, and he'll swing for 1 with Zur at Alex, and there is an attack trigger, and Seth searches his library for a Diplomatic Immunity and attaches it to Zur. And then the turn is passed to Alex, who will start off with an Inventor's Fair, and then he'll free cast a Mox Amber. After this, he'll cast Mishra, and then he'll cast Spark Double to get another Mishra, and he forgets to put a counter on it. He'll then equip the chip to Mishra, and then he'll cast Grave Pact from the top of his library. He'll then move to combat, and his 2 Mishras will make 2 copies of Knight Paladin. When they both enter the battlefield, Panharmonicon will cause them to trigger twice, meaning everybody but Alex takes 16 damage. I only marked Chandler for 14 though, cause Soul Warden will make him gain 2 back. Alex will then pass through combat, and then cast Mishra's Bauble. He'll then cast Ornithopter off the top of his library, and then he'll cast Felwar Stone. Alex will then move to end step and sacrifice his 2 tokens. Grave Pact will trigger twice, so everyone else has to sacrifice 2 creatures. And then the turn is passed to Sam. And Sam will just tap for 6 and cast Inferno Titan. It'll resolve, and Chandler makes a deal with Sam. If he points it at Seth's face, Chandler won't full swing and kill him next turn. And Sam agrees. Sam will also pay the 1 for Inferno Titan, and then the turn is passed to Chandler. Sylvan Library trigger, and Chandler's very excited at what he sees, and he won't pay any life. He'll then play Field of the Dead as land for turn, and this will get him a 2/2 zombie and grow his plants by 1. And so, instead of casting Ghalta like he planned to this turn, he'll tap for 8 and slam Craterhoof. Alex will respond by cracking his Mishra's Bauble to look at the top of Seth's library, and then the hoof resolves, giving all of Chandler's creatures +11/+11 and trample until end of turn. So then Chandler will move to combat, and he'll swing all 6 of his 14 power trample plants at Alex. And then, keeping up with his end of the deal of not killing Sam, he'll swing for 14 at Sam, putting him to 1, and Alex will die from this. Toski will draw Chandler a total of 7 cards off this, and then the turn is passed to Seth. And 5 cards are discarded during cleanup. On Seth's turn, he'll cast Talisman of Dominance, then he'll tap for 6 and recast Zur, and then he'll cast Counterbalance. The turn is then passed to Sam, and he'll start off with a forest. Then he'll cast Shamanic Revelation. Seth declines Counterbalance, so it'll resolve. He'll then equip Blade of Selves to his Inferno Titan, and move to combat, and swing it at Chandler. Myriad and Inferno Titan will trigger. He'll resolve the Myriad first, and make a token copy that's swinging at Seth, and this will put an ETB trigger on the stack. The attack trigger and the ETB trigger will both be pointed at Chandler for a total of 6 damage. Chandler chumps with a zombie, and Seth with Zur. The turn is then passed to Chandler, and he starts off with a basic forest, which gets him another zombie. He then almost casts Ghalta and Mavren, because he just wants to cast them at least once this game, but remembers that Seth has 3 Ghostly Prisons, so to be able to win this turn, he has to be able to pay for that. And he'll move to combat and swing Avenger of Zendikar at Seth and pay 6 mana, and then everything else at Sam. They pass through the combat phase with no blockers, and there are no other responses, so damage will go through, and Seth and Sam die, so Chandler is the winner. Way to go. Well, everyone, there you have it. What'd you think? Did you expect Ghalta and Mavren to win? I know Chandler didn't actually cast them, but Ghalta and Mavren require other creatures to be on the battlefield, and every time he set up a decent board for them, it got wiped. So he had to finish it the good old-fashioned way, Avenger of Zendikar and Craterhoof Behemoth. I was really impressed with everyone else's decks too. Seth got lucky with that turn 1 Mystic Remore and got to draw like 8 cards. Alex proved to me that Knight Paladin is actually a really good card in artifact decks. And Sam's take on Ghired with all that Myriad is always really fun to watch. But yeah, that's all for today, guys. Again, let us know what you thought down in the comments below. We love hearing from you. And while you're down there, don't forget to check out all of the links in the description. But yeah, that's it for today, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a smooth day.